I never thought a gym could change my life. It was just a place to sweat, to push my limits, to drown out the noise of the world with the clank of weights and the hum of treadmills. But then I met Rex, and everything shifted. This is the story of how a chance encounter in a crowded gym turned into something deeper, something I didn't see coming. It's about the slow burn of connection, the way two people can find each other in the most unexpected places, and the messy, beautiful emotions that come with it. The gym was my sanctuary, a place where I could focus on myself. At 34, I was in a good place, decent job, a small circle of friends, a routine that kept me grounded. But there was a quiet ache, a longing for something more, though I couldn't quite name it. I'd been single for years, not because I was afraid of love, but because I hadn't found anyone who made me feel alive. Not until Rex walked through the door. It was a Tuesday evening, the gym buzzing with its usual after-work crowd. I was halfway through my sets, earbuds blasting a playlist to keep me focused, when I noticed him. Rex wasn't the kind of guy you'd miss. Tall, broad-shouldered, with a presence that filled the room. His dark hair was slightly tousled, and his hazel eyes caught the fluorescent lights in a way that made them look like they held secrets. He moved with confidence, but not arrogance, setting up at the squat rack across from me. I didn't think much of it at first. Just another guy, another face in the sea of regulars. But then our eyes met, just for a second, as I adjusted the weights on my barbell. He gave a small nod, the kind you exchange with strangers out of politeness. I nodded back, my heart doing a weird little flip I couldn't explain. I shook it off and went back to my workout. But something about that moment stuck with me. Over the next few weeks, I started seeing him more often. Rex was consistent, always there around the same time as me, his routine as disciplined as mine. We'd exchange nods, sometimes a quick hey if we passed each other by the water fountain. I learned his name from overhearing him talk to another gym goer, a guy who seemed to know everyone. Rex. It suited him strong, simple, grounded. I wasn't looking for anything, not really. My life was fine, maybe even good. But there was something about Rex that pulled me in, like a tide I didn't notice until I was already caught in it. It wasn't just his looks, though he was undeniably attractive. It was the way he carried himself, focused, but not closed off. There was a warmth in his quick smiles, a quiet intensity in the way he'd pause to catch his breath between sets, like he was thinking about something bigger than the gym. One evening, after a particularly grueling session, I was wiping down my equipment when he approached. My heart gave that same strange flutter, and I told myself to calm down. He was probably just going to ask about the machine or something mundane. "Hey," he said, his voice low but clear, cutting through the gym's background noise. "You've got a solid form on those deadlifts. Mind if I ask for a spot?" I blinked, caught off guard. Yeah, sure," I managed, hoping I didn't sound as flustered as I felt. "No problem." We fell into an easy rhythm, him lifting, me spotting, trading small talk about workouts and recovery tips. His voice had a warmth that matched his smile, and I found myself noticing little things, the way his hands gripped the bar, the slight sheen of sweat on his forehead, the way he laughed when I made a dumb joke about protein shakes. It was effortless, like we'd known each other longer than 5 minutes. That was the first real conversation we had, and it felt like a door cracking open. Over the next few weeks, we started talking more. Quick chats turned into longer ones, lingering by the lockers or grabbing water together. I learned he was 36, a graphic designer who worked freelance and had a dry sense of humor that caught me off guard. He learned I was a project manager, always juggling deadlines, and that I had a weakness for sci-fi novels. We didn't talk about anything deep, not yet, but there was a spark, a pull that made me look forward to gym sessions in a way I never had before. I started to notice the way my mood lifted when I saw him. The gym wasn't just a routine anymore, it was a place where I might see Rex, might catch that quick grin or hear his laugh. But I wasn't sure what to make of it. Was I reading too much into it? Was he just being friendly? I'd been out for years, comfortable with who I was, but navigating attraction was still a minefield. I didn't want to misstep, didn't want to assume something that wasn't there. One night, after a late session, we ended up walking out together. The air was cool, the parking lot quiet, except for the hum of distant traffic. We stood by my car, talking about nothing in particular. When he went quiet for a moment, his eyes met mine, and there was something different in them, something vulnerable, searching. You ever feel like you're waiting for something, but you don't know what it is? He asked, his voice soft but steady. I swallowed, my pulse picking up. Yeah, I said. All the time. He nodded, like he'd expected that answer, and for a second I thought he might say something more, but he just smiled, said goodnight, and walked to his car. I stood there, keys in hand, feeling like I'd just missed a step on a staircase I didn't even know I was climbing. That moment stayed with me, replaying in my head as I lay in bed that night. It wasn't just attraction, it was something deeper, something that scared me as much as it excited me. I didn't know where this was going, but I knew I wanted to find out. The weeks that followed were a blur of small moments that felt bigger than they should have. Rex and I started syncing our gym schedules, not on purpose, but because it felt natural. We'd spot each other, share tips, laugh about the guy who always hogged the bench press. It was easy, comfortable, but there was an undercurrent, a tension that neither of us named. I started to notice the way he'd linger when we talked, the way his hand would brush mine when he passed me a weight, the way his eyes held mine just a beat longer than necessary. I wasn't imagining it, I couldn't be, but I was still cautious, still afraid of reading it wrong. I'd been burned before, years ago, by assuming too much, by letting my heart run ahead of reality. I didn't want to make that mistake again. But Rex was different. He wasn't flashy or loud, didn't play games or drop hints for the sake of it. He was steady, real, and that made it harder to keep my guard up. I started to open up, bit by bit, sharing stories about my life, my overbearing boss, my love for hiking, the way I'd always wanted to travel, but never found the time. He listened, really listened, his eyes locked on mine like he was taking in every word, and he shared 2 stories about growing up in a small town, his passion for arts, the way he'd always felt a little out of place until he found his footing. One evening, we ended up at the smoothie bar next to the gym, a place I'd never bothered with before. We sat at a small table, sipping overpriced drinks, and the conversation turned personal. He told me about his last relationship, how it had ended a year ago, how it had left him questioning what he wanted. I shared my own story, the way I'd poured too much into someone who hadn't been ready, how I'd learned to be okay on my own. You don't seem like someone who's just okay, he said, his voice quiet but firm. You seem like someone who's waiting for the right person to shake things up. My breath caught, and I looked at him, searching for a hint of what he meant. His eyes were steady, warm, and for the first time, I let myself believe that maybe, just maybe, he felt it too. That night, as we walked to our cars, he stopped me. "Hey," he said, his voice softer than usual. "You want to grab coffee sometime? Outside of this place?" My heart pounded, but I kept my voice steady. "Yeah," I said, "I'd like that." He smiled, and it was like the world tilted. "Just a little. Cool," he said. "It's a date." That first coffee date was the start of something I couldn't have predicted. We met at a small cafe downtown, the kind with mismatched chairs and walls covered in local art. It was different from the gymno sweat. No waits, just the two of us, talking for hours. We laughed about stupid things, like the time I tripped on a treadmill or the way he'd once accidentally dyed his hair green. But we also talked about bigger things, dreams, fears, the kind of stuff you don't share with just anyone. Rex had a way of making me feel seen, like he understood parts of me I didn't even talk about. He wasn't perfect, he could be stubborn, a little too serious sometimes, but those flaws made him real, made me like him more. I started to realize how much I looked forward to seeing him, how much I thought about him when we weren't together. But it wasn't all smooth. There were moments of doubt, moments when I wondered if I was moving too fast, if I was setting myself up for hurt. Rex had his own walls, his own hesitations. He'd been hurt before too, and I could see it in the way he'd pull back sometimes, like he was testing the waters, making sure it was safe to dive in. One night, after a few weeks of coffee dates and late-night texts, we were sitting in my car outside his apartment. The air was thick with unspoken words, and I could feel the weight of what we both wanted to say. I took a chance, reached for his hand, and he didn't pull away. His fingers laced with mine, warm and steady, and for a moment, we just sat there. The world quiet except for the sound of our breathing. "I'm scared," he admitted, his voice barely above a whisper. "This feels big." I nodded, my throat tight. "Me too," I said, "but I think it's worth it." He looked at me, his eyes searching, and then he leaned in. The kiss was soft, tentative, but it felt like a promise, like the start of something we were both ready to fight for. The months that followed were a mix of joy and challenge. Rex and I were building something real, but it wasn't always easy. We had our differences. His love for early mornings clashed with my night owl tendencies, and we'd argue about stupid things like whose turn it was to pick the restaurant. But we always found our way back to each other, talking it out, learning how to fit our lives together. The gym was still our place, the place where it all started. We'd still spot each other, still laugh about the same old gym characters. But now there was a warmth to it, a sense of us against the world. I'd catch him looking at me sometimes, his eyes soft, and I'd feel that same flutter from the first day we met. But there were deeper moments too. Moments when we'd talk about the future, about what we wanted, about the fears that still lingered. I told him about my worry that I wasn't enough, that I'd let him down somehow. He told me about his fear of losing himself in a relationship, of giving too much and getting hurt again. We were honest, sometimes brutally so, but it made us stronger. One night, after a long day, we were lying on his couch, his head resting on my chest. The TV was on, but neither of us was watching. I could feel his heartbeat, steady and sure, and I realized I was in love with him. Not the kind of love that's loud and dramatic, but the kind that's quiet, deep. The kind that makes you want to build a life together. "I love you," I said, the words slipping out before I could stop them. He went still, and for a second I thought I'd messed it up. But then he looked up at me, his eyes shining, and said, "I love you too." It wasn't perfect, and it wasn't easy, but it was ours. And as I held him there, I knew I'd found what I'd been waiting for all along, falling in love with Rex. It was like finding a part of myself I didn't know was missing. But love, real love, isn't just the spark, it's the work. The choice to keep showing up, to keep building even when it's hard. This is the story of what came next, the months that tested us, shaped us, and made us stronger. It's about the joy of sharing a life and the courage it takes to face the uncertainties together. The first few months after we said "I love you" were a whirlwind. Rex and I were inseparable, spending every spare moment together. We'd go on hikes, try new restaurants, or just stay in and watch movies, arguing over which sci-fi flick was the best. The gym was still our anchor, the place where we'd tease each other about form or steal glances between sets. But now, it was more than just a gym, it was a reminder of how we'd found each other. We started blending our lives in small ways. He'd leave a toothbrush at my place, I'd keep his favorite coffee at mine. We met each other's friends, navigating the awkward introductions and the inevitable questions. My friends loved Rex's charm, his quick wit, but I could tell he was nervous, wanting to make a good impression. His friends were the same, sizing me up, but they warmed to me when they saw how much I cared about him. But blending lives wasn't always smooth. Rex was fiercely independent, used to doing things his way, and I was no different. We'd butt heads over little things: how to split the bill, whose place we'd stay at, how much time we needed alone. I remember one night when we argued about something stupid, like whether to go out or stay in. It escalated, both of us too stubborn to back down, and he ended up leaving my apartment in a huff. I sat there, staring at the door, my chest tight with regret. I hated fighting with him, hated the way it made me feel like we were slipping. But an hour later, he texted me, "I'm sorry, can we talk?" We met up at the park near his place, sitting on a bench under the stars. He admitted he'd overreacted, and I admitted I'd been too pushy. We talked it out, really talked, and it felt like we were peeling back another layer, getting closer in a way that fights sometimes make possible. That was when I realized love isn't about never fighting, it's about how you come back from it. Rex and I were learning, step by step, how to be a team. As the months went on, we started talking about bigger things. Moving in together, maybe. The idea thrilled me, but it also scared me. I'd lived alone for years, built a life that was mine, and the thought of sharing it completely was daunting. Rex felt the same, and we'd have late-night conversations about what it would mean, how we'd balance our independence with our commitment, how we'd make space for each other's quirks. One evening, we were at his place, cooking dinner together. He was chopping vegetables, I was stirring the sauce, and we were laughing about how terrible we both were at following recipes. The kitchen was a mess, but it felt like home. I looked at him, his sleeves rolled up, a smudge of flour on his cheek, and I thought, this is it. This is what I want. "Do you ever think about the future?" I asked, trying to sound casual. He glanced at me, a small smile playing on his lips. "All the time," he said. "You?" "Yeah," I said, my heart racing. "I think about us, about what it'd be like to, do this for real, long term." He set down the knife, turned to face me. "I want that," he said, his voice steady. "But I'm scared too. It's a lot, giving someone that much of yourself." I nodded, stepping closer. "I know, but I think we're worth it." He reached for my hand, his fingers warm against mine. "Yeah," he said, "we are." That night, we made a plan, not a concrete one, but a promise to keep moving forward, to keep building together. It wasn't a proposal or a lease agreement, but it was a step, a commitment to figure it out together. Life threw challenges at us, like it always does. Work got hectic for both of us. My projects piled up, his clients were demanding. There were weeks when we barely saw each other outside the gym, stolen moments between deadlines and late nights. I missed him, missed the ease of our early days, but we made it work. We'd leave voicemails, send texts, meet for quick coffees, when we could. One night, after a particularly rough week, I showed up at his apartment unannounced. I was exhausted, frayed, and I just needed to see him. He opened the door, took one look at me, and pulled me into a hug. We didn't say much, just sat on his couch, his arm around me, the weight of the week slipping away. "You're my person," he said, his voice quiet but sure. "You know that, right?" I nodded, my throat tight. "You're mine too." Those moments, the quiet ones, were what held us together. They reminded me that love isn't just the big gestures, it's the small ones, the way you show up when it matters most. A year after we met, we decided to take the leap and move in together. It was terrifying, exhilarating, and everything in between. We found a small apartment, not perfect but ours, and spent weeks painting walls, arguing about furniture, and laughing until we couldn't breathe. The gym was still our place, but now we had a home too, a space we were building together. There were still challenges, moments of doubt, moments when we had to work to understand each other, but there were also moments of joy, like waking up next to him, or coming home to find him sketching at the kitchen table, or stealing kisses in the middle of a workout. Rex wasn't just my partner, he was my best friend, my anchor, the person who made every day better. We weren't perfect, but we were real, and that was enough. As I sit here now, looking at him across the room, I think about how far we've come. The gym was where it started, but this our life, our love, our loves, where it's going, and I wouldn't trade it for anything.